The skies above Earth remained quiet on that Tuesday morning. Air traffic controllers, satellite operators, and amateur astronomers went about their normal routines. None of them expected that humanity's place in the universe was about to change forever. At exactly 9:47 a.m. Greenwich Mean Time, every radio telescope on Earth received the same signal. It wasn't random noise or the echo of some distant star. This was a clear, structured message repeating on a loop. Dr. Tom Reed was drinking his third cup of coffee when the alert flashed on his screen at the Deep Space Listening Array in Nevada. He nearly spilled the hot liquid across his keyboard as the pattern emerged. "Holy," he whispered, watching numbers scroll across his monitor. "Karen, get in here now." Dr. Karen Bell rushed in, her eyes widening as she scanned the data. "That's impossible. It's too organized, too deliberate. And it's coming from just beyond Neptune," Tom added, his voice shaking. "Whatever this is, it's practically in our backyard." Within hours, government officials from every major nation gathered in emergency meetings. The message had been partially decoded. It was a distress call. Someone, or something, needed help. 3 days later, Captain James Miller stood nervously in a conference room at the International Space Agency headquarters. At 42, Miller had commanded the Mars resupply missions and led the Europa submarine expedition, but nothing in his training had prepared him for this assignment. "Captain," General Hayes said, sliding a folder across the table, "congratulations. You've just become humanity's first ambassador to alien life." Miller opened the folder and studied the details. "They're stranded. Their engines failed." "That's what we've pieced together," Dr. Bell explained, pointing to translated sections of the message. "They call themselves the Galactic Cooperative. 7 different species traveling together. Their entire fleet suffered some kind of massive system failure while passing through our solar system." The room fell silent as images from the deep space telescopes appeared on the wall screen. There, just beyond Neptune's orbit, floated 12 massive ships. Their sleek, curved designs made human spacecraft look like children's toys by comparison. "How advanced are they?" Miller asked. General Hayes laughed without humor. "Let's put it this way. They'd been traveling between stars while we're still burning fossil fuels. But right now, that doesn't matter. Their ships aren't moving, and we're the only help within reach." Dr. Bell shifted uncomfortably in her seat. "There's something else you should know, Captain. We've sent them information about Earth and our capabilities." Their response was, "Well, they think we're primitives," Hayes finished bluntly. "Barely worth talking to. But they're desperate." Miller looked at the images again, studying the enormous vessels drifting helplessly in space. Despite their advanced technology, they needed Earth's help. They needed humans. "When do we leave?" he asked. "The Odyssey launches in 48 hours, Hayes replied. "We're repurposing our deep space vessel. It's not pretty, but it's the best we got." As Miller left the meeting, he stopped at a window overlooking the launch pad where technicians swarmed around Earth's most advanced spacecraft. The Odyssey was humanity's pride, a vehicle designed to reach the outer planets. Now it would carry the first humans to make contact with alien life. His phone buzzed with a message. The teen roster was complete. Engineer Tina Ross, linguist Mark Davis, and veteran pilot Alex Wilson. Miller took a deep breath as he watched the sunset paint the sky orange. Tomorrow, he would meet his crew. In 2 days, they would leave Earth behind to help beings from another world. Beings who had crossed the stars, but now found themselves stranded in humanity's backyard. For better or worse, first contact wouldn't happen on humanity's terms. It would happen because aliens needed our help. Captain James Miller arrived early at the launch facility's conference room. The walls were lined with hastily mounted screens showing the alien fleet's position and the constantly updated translations of their messages. He reviewed his notes on the 3 specialists chosen for this unprecedented mission. The door opened, and a stocky woman with short red hair walked in, carrying a worn toolbox that looked out of place in the high-tech facility. "Engineer Tina Ross reporting, Captain," she said, placing the toolbox on the table with a heavy thud. Though I'm guessing the reporting part is just for show, since nobody else would take this job. Miller had read her file. Ross had been suspended from 3 major aerospace companies for what they called unauthorized modifications to critical systems. What they meant was that she fixed things in ways that worked but broke conventional rules. I need someone who solves problems, not someone who follows rulebooks, Miller replied. From what I understand, we're dealing with technology nobody on Earth has ever seen. Ross nodded. Fair enough. Just don't expect me to salute. Next through the door was Dr. Mark Davis, the linguist. Tall and thin with thick glasses, he carried 3 tablets and was muttering to himself as he entered. Without acknowledging anyone, he sat down and continued working on complex symbol patterns. Davis, Miller said loudly. The linguist looked up, surprised. Oh, Captain. Sorry. I'm making progress on their mathematical language system. It's beautiful, really. Base 12 numeric structure with... Save it for the briefing, Miller said gently. The final team member arrived precisely on time. Alex Wilson walked with the slight stiffness of someone who had spent too many years in zero gravity. At 58, he was the oldest of them all and had been flying spacecraft since before Miller joined the academy. Captain, Wilson said with a nod. Heard they pulled me out of retirement for this circus. You've got more deep space hours than anyone else alive, Miller explained. And you understand mechanical systems better than our engineers. Wilson shrugged. Was supposed to start fishing next week. Guess the fish will have to wait. With the team assembled, Miller activated the main screen. Our mission is simple in concept but unprecedented in execution. We will make contact with the alien fleet, assess their technical problems, and help them make repairs if possible. If possible, Ross scoffed. We barely understand our own propulsion systems. How are we supposed to fix spaceships built by beings who cross between stars? Davis looked up from his tablets. Actually, that's what makes humans uniquely qualified. The aliens' messages indicate their systems are highly specialized. When something unexpected happens, they don't adapt well. Humans, on the other hand, we make things work with duct tape and cursing. Wilson finished with a dry smile. The briefing continued for another hour before being interrupted by an urgent message. The aliens had requested visual contact before the human team launched. The screen flickered, and they found themselves looking at a being that resembled a tall, slender humanoid with iridescent blue skin and large, multifaceted eyes. I am Commander Lorne of the Galactic Cooperative, the alien said, its words translated by Davis' program. We have reviewed your species' capabilities and technological development. The alien's faceted eyes seemed to narrow. Your assistance is not ideal. However, our situation leaves us without alternatives. We expected to find only primitive life forms in this system, not a species barely achieving orbital travel. Miller stepped forward. We may surprise you, Commander. My team will reach your position in 6 days. We will prepare for your arrival, Lorne replied without enthusiasm. Though I must express concern about your vessel's primitive design. It appears dangerously unstable. After the transmission ended, Wilson laughed. Well, that went well. They think we're cavemen with rockets. Ross patted her toolbox. Let them think what they want. When their fancy ships need fixing, they'll change their tune. As the team dispersed to prepare for launch, Miller stared at the screen showing the alien fleet. Humanity's first interstellar rescue mission would begin tomorrow, whether the aliens appreciated their rescuers or not. The Odyssey shuddered as its engines ignited, pushing the spacecraft away from Earth with tremendous force. Captain Miller watched his planet shrink to a blue dot through the viewport while his team settled into their stations for the long journey to Neptune's orbit. Systems nominal, Wilson announced from the pilot's seat, his experienced hands dancing across the controls. We'll reach the outer solar system in 6 days if we maintain current acceleration. Tina Ross frowned at her engineering console. 6 days to Neptune. That's impossible with our propulsion technology. It would be, Miller agreed, if Mission Control hadn't installed the experimental fusion drive. Ross's eyes widened. The Hawking drive. But that's still in testing. It's unstable and it's the only way we'll reach the aliens before their life support systems fail, Miller interrupted. General Hayes pulled strings to get it installed. Right now, we're traveling faster than any humans in history. Mark Davis looked up from his linguistics station, his face slightly green from the launch acceleration. The aliens won't be impressed. According to their transmissions, their damaged ships would normally cross this distance in hours. The journey proceeded without major incidents for the first 4 days. The team spent their time studying the alien transmissions and preparing for first contact. Davis made remarkable progress with the aliens' language, while Ross reviewed every scrap of information about their technology. On the 5th day, Miller called the team to the conference room for their final briefing. "We'll reach the alien fleet tomorrow," he announced, activating a holographic display of the 12 massive ships. Their vessels are approximately 2 kilometers long each. Our ship will dock with the command vessel here. He pointed to the largest ship at the center of the formation. Wilson whistled. "Those aren't ships, they're flying cities." "Exactly," Miller nodded. "Each vessel carries around 5,000 individuals from various species. Commander Lorne's ship contains representatives from all 7 species in their alliance." Davis adjusted his glasses. Their transmissions have become increasingly desperate. Their life support systems are holding, but they're rationing resources. Whatever disabled their engines has them genuinely frightened. "Any ideas what caused the failure?" Miller asked Ross. The engineer shook her head. "Their technology descriptions are, well, they're so advanced they barely make sense. They use something called quantum resonance drives that manipulate space-time. Nothing like our primitive thrust engines." "Primitive but functional," Wilson pointed out. "We're still moving while they're stuck." Ross nodded thoughtfully. "That's what's strange. Whatever affected their ships doesn't seem to impact our technology. It's as if." She was interrupted by a violent shudder that ran through the entire ship. Emergency lights flashed as the Odyssey lurched sideways. "Status report," Miller shouted, grabbing the table to stay upright. Wilson's fingers flew across his portable control panel. "The Hawking drive is fluctuating. We've hit some kind of disturbance field." "The same thing that disabled the alien ships?" Davis asked. "No," Ross replied, studying the readings. "Our fusion drive is responding differently. It's destabilizing, but not shutting down." "Wilson, can you modulate the containment field?" The pilot nodded grimly. "Already on it. Reducing power to 70%. The shaking subsided, but the emergency lights continued to flash. "What just happened?" Miller demanded. Ross looked up, her face illuminated by the red emergency lights. "I think we just got our first clue about what disabled the alien fleet. There's some kind of quantum disturbance in this region of space. Their drives failed completely, but our simpler technology just became inefficient." "Captain," Davis called out, "we're receiving a new transmission from Commander Lorne." The alien's face appeared on the main screen, its multifaceted eyes somehow conveying surprise despite their alien structure. "You have survived the barrier," Lorne stated. "Unexpected. Perhaps your primitive technology has advantages we did not anticipate." Miller exchanged glances with his team. "We'll reach your position in 20 hours, Commander. And I think we may have just discovered why your ships failed." As the transmission ended, Miller stared at the distant pinpoints of light that marked the alien fleet. The mission had suddenly become even more complicated and potentially more important than anyone had imagined. The Odyssey approached the alien fleet with its engines running at minimum power. Through the main viewport, the 12 massive vessels gleamed in the dim light of the distant sun, their sleek, curved hulls making Earth's best spacecraft look like crude metal boxes in comparison. "They're beautiful," Davis whispered, pressing his hand against the glass. "Pretty doesn't mean practical," Wilson replied from the pilot's seat. No sharp edges, no visible thrusters. How do these things even move? Tina Ross didn't look up from her engineering station. According to their specifications, they don't move as we understand it. They create localized space-time distortions that essentially pull space toward them rather than pushing through it. Miller watched as they approached the largest ship, a 5-kilometer-long vessel with a crystalline structure that seemed to shimmer with inner light. Final approach, Wilson announced. Their docking system is guiding us in. A beam of blue light extended from the alien ship, enveloping the Odyssey and gently pulling it toward an opening that appeared in the smooth hull. The human vessel looked tiny beside the enormous alien craft. Pressure equalizing, Ross reported as they settled into the docking bay. Atmosphere reads as oxygen-rich, but with higher nitrogen content than Earth. Breathable, but we might feel lightheaded. Miller nodded. Suits on standby, but we'll try to work without them. Davis, you're our voice. When the airlock opened, the human team stepped into a vast chamber where a delegation of aliens waited. Commander Lorne stood at the front, taller than in the transmissions, nearly 7 feet high with that shimmering blue skin. Behind Lorne stood representatives of the other species, one resembling a 4-armed insectoid, another like a floating mass of translucent tendrils, and 4 others equally strange to human eyes. Davis stepped forward with Miller, activating his translation device. Commander Lorne, we bring greetings from Earth. The alien made a gesture with long, 4-fingered hands. Your arrival is noted. Your vessel's functioning in the quantum disruption field is unexpected. Miller noticed the alien wouldn't use words like impressive or welcome. We'd like to understand what happened to your fleet, Miller said. Lorne led them to a control center filled with holographic displays showing incomprehensible symbols and diagrams. Approximately 12 of your days ago, all ships experienced simultaneous drive failures as we entered the solar system. Our quantum resonance engines stopped functioning. Ross approached one of the displays. May I? She asked, gesturing to the controls. After a reluctant nod from Lorne, she began examining the alien technology. These readings are fascinating. Your engines didn't just fail, they became mathematically impossible. The insectoid alien stepped forward. Correct. The quantum resonance fields collapsed in patterns that defy our understanding. We have tried 47 restart configurations. All failed. Wilson frowned, looking at another display. Have you experienced this before? Never, Lorne replied. Our drive technology has been stable for 800 years. This solar system contains some unique property that renders our propulsion mathematics invalid. Davis studied the symbols on another screen. It looks like you've tried reconfiguring the resonance fields, but what about using conventional thrust as backup? The aliens exchanged glances that even humans could read as discomfort. We abandoned primitive thrust-based propulsion centuries ago, Lorne explained. Our vessels have no such systems. Miller stared in disbelief. You cross between stars without backup systems. Our primary systems have a mathematical certainty of function. Backup systems were deemed unnecessary and inefficient, Lorne replied, as if explaining something obvious to a child. Ross laughed suddenly, drawing surprised looks from aliens and humans alike. I see the problem, she said. Your technology is too perfect. Explain, Lorne demanded. Ross pointed to the displays. Your drives rely on perfect quantum symmetry. But something in this solar system, maybe radiation from your sun, maybe something else, creates quantum asymmetry. Your perfect systems can't handle imperfection. While our primitive fusion drive just gets a bit wobbly, Wilson added with a grin. The aliens conferred among themselves in rapid, musical tones before Lorne turned back to the humans. If your assessment is correct, our situation is worse than we believed, the commander stated. Our drives cannot be repaired because they are not damaged. They are incompatible with this region of space. Miller stepped forward. Maybe you don't need to repair them. Maybe you need to replace them with something a little less perfect. With human technology, Ross clarified. Sometimes imperfect solutions are exactly what you need. The alien delegation went completely silent, their postures suggesting they were experiencing something between horror and disbelief. The control room fell silent as the aliens processed Ross's suggestion. Commander Lorne's iridescent skin pulsed with shifting patterns that Davis whispered might indicate distress or disbelief. "You propose we regress our technology?" Lorne finally asked, the translation device struggling to convey the mixture of horror and confusion in the alien's voice. "Not regress," Miller corrected. "Adapt. Your quantum drives won't work here, but conventional propulsion will." Ross stepped forward, her eyes bright with excitement. "I've been studying your ship schematics. You have enormous power generation systems still functioning perfectly. We just need to give that power somewhere useful to go." The insectoid alien shuddered rapidly, and the translation came through as, "The humans suggest we build primitive combustion engines using our advanced materials. The concept is unsettling." Wilson shrugged. "Unsettling beats starving to death when your life support finally gives out." Miller watched the aliens carefully. Despite their advanced technology, they seemed paralyzed by the problem, unable to think outside their established methods. "Let me show you what we're thinking," Ross said, approaching one of the holographic displays. "May I input some designs?" After receiving reluctant permission, Ross began sketching a hybrid propulsion system. Her fingers moved quickly across the alien interface as she merged human rocket concepts with the aliens' power systems. "Your energy cores produce enough power to run a small country," she explained. "We can channel that power into electromagnetic accelerators, basically advanced versions of engines we use on Earth. It won't be as elegant as your quantum drives, but it will move these ships." Davis had been quietly conversing with some of the other alien species. He turned to Miller. "Captain, they're concerned about material compatibility. They don't have metals and alloys designed for heat resistance." Miller nodded. "Wilson, what about the Odyssey's spare parts? Could we use our heat shields as templates?" The pilot considered this. Not enough material for 12 massive ships, but his eyes lit up. "Their outer hull sections. The composition is different from the interior. If we repurpose non-essential sections." Ross examined the ship schematics again. "He's right. The radiation shielding on the lower decks has perfect thermal properties for this application." For the next 2 hours, the humans worked alongside increasingly curious aliens, designing a hybrid propulsion system that married Earth's relatively primitive combustion concepts with the aliens' advanced materials and power generation. As the plans took shape in the holographic display, even Commander Lorne began showing interest. The alien moved closer, multifaceted eyes studying the designs. "This solution appears functional," Lorne admitted reluctantly. "But the efficiency is terrible compared to our standard drives." "Efficiency doesn't matter if you can't move at all," Ross pointed out. "These engines will get you beyond our solar system's edge, where your quantum drives should work again." One of the other aliens, the floating mass of translucent tendrils, approached Miller. Its translated voice sounded surprisingly gentle. "Your species thinks differently," it observed. "Where we seek perfection in a single approach, you maintain multiple pathways to solve problems." Miller nodded. "Humans learned the hard way not to put all our eggs in one basket." Davis quickly explained the idiom to the confused aliens. The alien council withdrew to discuss the proposal, leaving the humans waiting nervously. After what felt like hours, they returned. Commander Lorne addressed Miller directly. "We have reached consensus. Your solution, while aesthetically and philosophically troubling to our standards, appears to be our only option. We accept your assistance." Ross couldn't contain her grin. "Great. We'll need to create a prototype on one ship first, then scale up for the others." "How long will this retrofit require?" Lorne asked. Wilson did some quick calculations. "With your fabrication technology and our design, maybe 2 weeks for all 12 ships." The aliens conferred briefly. "Acceptable," Lorne declared. We will assign our best engineers to work under your direction." As the meeting concluded, Miller noticed something had changed in how the aliens regarded his team. The dismissive tone was gone, replaced by something that, while not quite respect, was at least recognition. "It seems they're finally seeing some value in human thinking," Davis commented quietly. Ross patted her toolkit with satisfaction. Nothing like a good old-fashioned impossible problem to show what humans do best. Day and night blended together as the humans and aliens worked to implement Ross's hybrid propulsion design. The massive alien fabrication systems, once they were reprogrammed with the new specifications, could produce parts at an astonishing rate. What would have taken months on Earth was accomplished in days. Captain Miller stood on an observation platform, watching as teams of aliens dismantled sections of their own ships under Wilson's supervision. The pilot had proven to have an unexpected talent for directing the complex operation. "They're quick learners," Miller remarked as Davis joined him on the platform. The linguist nodded. "They're actually starting to ask questions about our methods now. Yesterday, 3 different species wanted me to explain why humans developed so many redundant systems." "What did you tell them?" "That failure is our greatest teacher," Davis replied. They seemed troubled by the concept. Their civilization has been stable for so long that they've forgotten how to learn from mistakes. Below them, Ross was demonstrating a welding technique to a group of the insectoid aliens. Despite having 4 arms, they struggled with the imprecise nature of the work. Their movements were too perfect, too measured for the rough adjustments needed. "It's like watching concert pianists try to play rock music," Miller observed. "They have all the technical skill, but none of the feel for it." Commander Lorne approached, moving with the fluid grace characteristic of their species. "Your engineer Ross has requested we test the prototype on my vessel first. Is this acceptable to you?" Miller nodded. "She believes your ship's power distribution system will be easiest to adapt. If it works, we'll use it as the template for the others." The concept of testing unproven technology on a command vessel is foreign to us, Lorne admitted. But these are unusual circumstances. 3 days later, the first test was ready. The command ship had been fitted with 8 massive thrusters arranged around its hull, each connected to the ship's still-functioning power core through a complex series of converters designed by Ross. The human team gathered in the alien equivalent of a bridge, a circular chamber with holographic controls floating in midair. The aliens maintained a careful distance from the humans, as if worried the impending failure might somehow be contagious. "All systems ready," Ross announced, her face smudged with grease despite the aliens' immaculate working conditions. "Power flow is stable. Magnetic containment fields are holding." Wilson sat at an improvised control station. "Ignition sequence programmed. We'll start at 10% thrust to test stability." Commander Lorne made a gesture that the humans had learned meant permission to proceed. "You may begin." Wilson initiated the sequence. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a low rumble vibrated through the enormous ship. The sound grew louder, becoming a deep, powerful roar that clearly disturbed the aliens. Several covered their hearing organs. "Is this noise normal?" Lorne asked, clearly unsettled. Ross grinned. "That's the sound of success, Commander. Your ship hasn't made noise in centuries, has it? Our propulsion systems operate in perfect quantum harmony," another alien explained. "They produce no vibration or sound." "Well, sometimes you need to make a little noise to get things done," Miller said. "Wilson, how are the readings?" The pilot studied the display. "Power flow steady. Thrust building exactly as calculated. We're moving. The ship is responding." The bridge erupted in a flurry of alien communication as they confirmed the readings on their own instruments. For the first time since the humans had arrived, the aliens showed obvious excitement. One of the tendriled aliens floated closer to Ross. "It functions despite its inefficiency and noise. Remarkable." "Sometimes elegant isn't what you need," Ross replied. "Sometimes you just need something that works." Commander Lorne approached Miller. The alien skin patterns had shifted to colors the humans hadn't seen before. "Captain Miller," Lorne said formally, "your team has accomplished what we believed impossible. The retrofit works. We can now implement it across our fleet." Miller nodded. "That was the easy part. Now we need to get all 12 ships moving together." As the successful test concluded, Miller noticed something had changed in the control room. The aliens no longer kept their distance from the humans. Instead, they gathered around Wilson and Ross, asking questions and offering observations. Davis leaned close to Miller. "I think we just earned their respect," he said quietly. "Not bad for primitives," Miller replied with a smile. 2 weeks after the first successful test, the final alien ship received its retrofitted propulsion system. From the observation deck of Commander Lorne's vessel, Captain Miller watched as the 12th set of engines flared to life, their blue-orange flames visible even across the vast distance of space. "All ships report ready for coordinated departure," Wilson announced, checking the fleet-wide communication system they had established. Miller nodded. Time to get them moving. The past 14 days had transformed the relationship between humans and aliens. What began as reluctant cooperation had evolved into something resembling mutual respect. The aliens still found human methods crude, but they could no longer deny their effectiveness. "Engineer Ross," Commander Lorne said, approaching the makeshift control center, "your hybrid engines have proven more reliable than I anticipated. The fleet owes you a debt." Ross looked up from her final calculations. "Just doing what humans do best, making things work with whatever's available." The alien commander's skin rippled with colors that Davis had recently identified as indicating thoughtfulness. This trait of adapting to limitations rather than achieving perfection, it is not one our cultures value. Yet perhaps it should be. Davis, who had spent days learning the nuances of alien communication, translated some of the more subtle meanings behind Lorne's statement. "I think that's the closest thing to a compliment you're going to get, Tina." Around them, aliens from all 7 species prepared for departure. The fleet would travel using human-designed engines until they reached the edge of the solar system, where they could safely reactivate their quantum drives. Commander Lorne called for attention, the translation system carrying the alien's voice throughout the ship and across the fleet. "Before we depart, the Council of Species has reached a unanimous decision regarding Earth," Lorne announced. "Previously, your planet was classified as pre-contact, observation only in our databases. This classification has been upgraded to limited contact, valuable problem solvers." Miller exchanged glances with his team. What exactly does that mean for Earth? The floating tendriled alien that had grown particularly interested in human culture moved forward. "It means we recognize your species has valuable perspectives despite your technological limitations. We will establish formal diplomatic relations rather than merely observing your development from afar." "You've been watching us?" Wilson asked, frowning. "For approximately 300 of your years," Lorne admitted. "Standard protocol for pre-contact civilizations." Miller decided to set that revelation aside for later discussion. "And what form will these diplomatic relations take?" "We will send representatives within the next solar cycle," Lorne explained. "And as a gesture of gratitude, we wish to leave you with certain knowledge." The commander gestured, and one of the insectoid aliens stepped forward carrying a crystalline data storage device. "This contains information on sustainable energy production, medical technologies, and material science appropriate for your current development level." Davis accepted the device carefully. "This is incredibly generous." "It is practical," Lorne corrected. "Your species solved a problem that 7 advanced civilizations could not. This suggests you have potential worth nurturing." Ross laughed. "I'll take that as a compliment." As the departure time approached, the humans prepared to return to the Odyssey. Their mission had succeeded beyond anyone's expectations. Not only had they saved the alien fleet, but they had established humanity's first interstellar diplomatic relationship. Commander Lorne accompanied them to the docking bay. "Captain Miller, there is something I have been curious about. Your species dedicates significant resources to maintaining old technologies alongside new developments. This seems inefficient. Miller considered his answer carefully. We've learned that new isn't always better, just different. Every tool has its purpose, and sometimes the old ways work when the new ones fail. A wisdom we had forgotten. Lorne acknowledged. Perhaps perfection is not always the correct goal. As the humans boarded their vessel, the alien commander made a formal gesture of respect, the first time any of the aliens had done so. Safe journey, humans of Earth. When we return, it will be as allies rather than desperate strangers. The Odyssey detached from the alien flagship as the entire fleet began to move, 12 enormous vessels accelerating on human-designed engines. From Earth, they would appear as new stars moving across the night sky, a visible reminder that humanity was no longer alone in the universe. And more importantly, that even the most advanced civilizations sometimes needed a human touch to solve an impossible problem.